to some Christmas craft. So we're going to look at making a little Christmas gonk, and this is a great little craft because you can use it to sort of teach a few leathercraft skills along the way. So for this we've done a little bit of stamping and tooling and colouring in with the paints. I think you can sort of see the patterns there, and a little bit of wet forming. So we've shaped the hat and shaped the beard. And you can set a rivet here or a screw post or something to give him a bit of a bulbous nose. Actually, I'm thinking a Sam Brown might be kind of fun. Be kind of like, yeah, anyway, whatever you choose for your nose. This was just an old button I had at the time when I was prototyping. So it's quite nice to give him lots of kind of bushy beard. So you want to cut these quite fine. So there's a template on the website under the project section. So if you found that and you're here, then welcome. So we're using the Eco Creamy White Leather, which we have lots of scrap pieces. We have big boxes of it if you decide to make lots of gonks, which you might do, who knows. But this is a vegetable tannage, but using olive oil pulp, really sustainable leather. You can hear me talk about it on other videos, but it's great. You can wet form it, tool it, lots of things, and it's just got this lovely white base colour. So on the back I drew out the template parts, having cut them out from these little bits. So you've got 4 parts. You've got a base, a hat, and 2 parts for the beard. He doesn't really have a face because that's kind of the gonk thing. So we're going to start with the hat. So I'm going to just mist spray the leather. So I just want to get some water on it. You can just use a sponge if you don't have a mister. But you just want to get the water content up. So you'll notice it kind of goes might not show on the camera, but it will go a little bit of a darker, kind of creamier colour as it gets the moisture content up. And then I'm going to bind my tools down and bring the camera down a little. So for this, you can, what I thought I'd do, because we've got lots of craft tools, but I'm going to just use the ones from the 6-piece tool set because that can work out the most effective way of buying these things. So to start with, I'm going to use an awl and just scratch the top bit of the hat that's going to sort of be the white fluffy bit, if you imagine. So like that kind of equivalent band of his hat. So I'm just drawing it in. It's a little bit narrow on the template. So I've scratched that in quite deeply. That's just going to give me my edge. And I'm going to use my beveler tool just to kind of go in a little bit onto that edge to create a bit of shadow. So when you're using the beveler, you've got this angle tool, and that's what I would call the sort of fat end, if you like, and the ski, if you imagine it like a little ski slope, you kind of want that fat end into your line, and then you're going to hit upwards and away to there. So if I just pop that in and give that a bit of a tap and just move it along the little curve bit just to kind of create the sense of shadow and 3D-ness. So I'll hold that up in just a second so you can see that. So let's see if the camera can pick up on the white. So you can see, ooh, try and get a better grip on that but you can sort of see a shadow forming there. There we go. So you've got starting to create that 3D, so that bit looks like it's sitting up above this section here. And then for this top section, I'm just going to add some tool decoration. So I've got here the camouflage tool and the cedar tool, just a little round circle. So the camouflage is also called a sunburst, kind of like that. So I'm just going to create effectively some sort of stripes going across. So firm hits, and you want to be on a sort of solid board. And if you've got your moisture content right, you'll see it really will take this impression beautifully. I'm going to angle it a bit as I move up to reflect the fact that the hat is tilting. And I'll just pop some cedars in there as well. Okay, and then before, we've now got some stamping effect on there. So before we let this dry off, we're going to sort of do some shape to it. So while it's still got some moisture, you want to get your fingers and bend the hat. So you kind of bend it to the center and let it kind of start to take a form, and you can sort of really twizzle the top of his hat as well to kind of give him a little bit of a kind of friendly looking tweak to his hat. So as much or as little as you want, but don't overdo it, I would say, but just gives it that kind of 3D little structure shape. And I'm going to pop this on the radiator to dry, or use my air gun so that when I can come back and paint this with you, and that will make it dry nice and hard. So I'm going to just go and pop him over there for a second while we go to do the beard. So got our two beard pieces. So they will look like this, and you'll see some fine lines on the template, which has been cut like this one, which I prepared earlier. Now to do that, although in the tutorial we've got these fantastic leather scissors, they're quite fat and blunt and wide, the actual blade. You can use it to cut as fine as this, but I did actually use some little thinner, smaller scissors for this that I do keep just for my Leathercraft that I've just had in my little toolbox. I'm not actually sure where they even came from. So I started at the far end, and then I took one straight up the middle. And if you do that and then work along either side and just get them as fine as you can, it doesn't particularly matter. You can have kind of chunkier bits of beard, but I just quite like to have lots of kind of thin bits and make him like look a little bit bushier. So I'm just cutting them like this. And this is the real fun bit too. So again, we're going to wet the leather. So I'm going to wet it from the back. You can dip it into a little bowl of water at this point as well, these. Just going to mist spray that. And just press that water in and around. And you'll notice the leather immediately kind of goes a lot softer. So what you can do almost from the point, you want to kind of let it really soak in a bit because it will work better. But once you've got it, you can pick up one at a time, and you're just going to twizzle them and twist them quite a lot and hold it and then let it ping out. Don't worry if it looks over twisted, it will kind of gradually work its way loose a bit, so you kind of want more, and just keep going. That's the fun bit. And then you get this kind of little bit of a curly old beard forming. Kind of looks a bit like an octopus at the minute, but there we go. That could be a tutorial for another day. And we'll just move them around a little, straighten them down. There we go. And you can start to see them having this kind of more interesting texture and shape. There we go. So just keep going until you've got your sections all done. So you can just see these ones are just poking over that top bit of the hat. So glue everything on, work out your position for your nose so it just comes, so it's just below or just on the level of your hat. And when you've done that, you're ready to paint. Now, when you paint this one, I'll do a little demo in a second, but you can just paint a base colour over. And when you've got the tooling, if you get just a little bit of a sponge with a tiny, tiny bit of your white paint, you can just rub that over and it will just highlight the paint. You could equally use the silver or gold finger waxes and get that kind of light if you wanted to give something a bit of a metallic sheen. I mean, it's Christmas, why wouldn't you? Now, the hotter you used the temperature to dry them, the radiator or the hot air gun, the harder they go. So this is now nice and hard, and got his two beard pieces ready and the base. So we're now ready to glue all these on together. You can paint them a little bit up before you glue if it's easier. I tend to just go ahead and get them all together and then paint. If you're doing it with kids, you might want to just decide what their skill levels are. So we're going to glue them together. So you want the larger part of the beard to go on first, and just position it until you find that it sits into the right place. It should mirror the shape there of the base, and then your other piece again is going to go on the top like so, and then your little hat will go on there. So for this I'm using the new Cadence hybrid paints because you just get such bold, lovely colours with it. So you'll see the paint goes on really easily, really nicely. So I'm just going to touch up around these side edges with it. Now the leather is white, so you don't need to paint his beard, but if you wanted to, you could use the white paint to just paint over and lift the whiteness of the beard a little bit over. So I'm just going to let that dry before I try to pick out the highlighting. And once my paint's dry, I'm going to just use the little bit that's left on the end of this brush just to lightly brush over and just highlight some of that tooling. So it's quite light, quite dry, quite subtle. And you could see how if you did this with a little bit of a metallic as well, you could create a little bit of a shimmer if you wanted. I quite like the just red and white or blue and white effect, but you could create anything you wanted. You could make his hat really stripy and mad, but hopefully you can see there it's just picked out that tooling texture, and we're now ready to pop his nose in place. So to do that, we're going to need a hole punch to punch out something for his nose. So we could use here, as I mentioned, anything that's going to give him a kind of roundy shape. So a rivet would be a big round shape. Maybe a Sam Brown might be a protruding one. I'm going to just make a hole ready for a rivet. We've also got spots which would be more domed, in which case you'd need to make two little prong slots, but I'm going to have a go with a rivet today for this one. So I'm going to pop a hole in just underneath the base of the hat there, sort of centered off. There we go. Now the trick when you're doing these hole punches, when you're going through several layers like this, and to get the punch to cut clean, is to take a scrap of the leather and put it behind, and that just provides a little bit of a cushion when you're hole punching out, and you get a nice clean hole going through. Now while I'm here and I've got the hole punch, I'm going to set it to the tiniest one, and I just want a little hole to hang a little thread through. Now for this I discovered that if I put 2 little holes in, the thread will hang straight, and he'll hang straight without sort of twisting around too much. So let's find a rivet. And there we have our gonk. So have a little go, make your own, let me see how they come out. Just a little fun thing to do for the Christmas tree this year.